Is it possible to take minimalism too far? What happens when you push simple living to its limits and live with way less? When you get to the point of sleeping on the floor, when you've only got one spoon, when your home is so bare that it feels like a social experiment. Is it possible that you've taken minimalism too far? I'm amazed at how far our culture has come with alternative lifestyles. Not long ago, it would have been socially unthinkable to live in a trailer, a tiny home, or a van down by the river. Okay, it's still a little bit creepy to live in a van down by the river. But things are turning around in a big way. It's aspirational now. There are tiny home shows popping up everywhere. You've got hashtag van life taking off, and 2 generations collectively starting to value experiences more than things. So I ran into a subscriber the other day, and he told me a little bit about his story. His life had changed pretty dramatically recently. He was working for a pretty prominent tech startup company, one that I won't mention by name, and they had pushed him to the point of burnout. And then he got fired. This is a pretty shitty place to be in, a pretty low moment for anybody. But he decided to take this bad situation and turn it into something positive. He completely switched up his lifestyle. Instead of the 12-hour workday he was used to, he decided to move into a van and live by the beach. How cool is that? How unthinkable would that have been just a few years ago? Now that's something that's totally possible, and people aren't gonna look down on you for it. Maybe a few people will look down on you for it, especially this guy's mom. Come to think of it, I wonder what my mom would think if I did something like that.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mom, I have a question.
Yeah, okay.
If Natalie and I were to give up all of our worldly possessions and move into a van, what would you say?
I would say, why? Why would you do that?
Some people will never understand your life choices, especially when you've decided to go down an unconventional path. Whether you wear the same shirt every day or use a binder clip instead of a wallet. Forget about the people that question your path. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone by having the latest toaster from Toaster Weekly Digest. The only person who can choose what's right for your life is you, with notable considerations if you have a partner. Like, even if Natalie would let us live in a van, it's not something that I want for my life. I'd just be giving up too much, so I don't live in a van. Okay, Natalie actually won't let me live in a van. When you strip away so much that you're depriving yourself of things that you love, then you've missed the point. Put another way, if you think you've taken minimalism too far, then you're doing minimalism wrong. Minimalism isn't the opposite of hoarding. It's a practice that helps us become more mindful of what we consume and make more thoughtful choices about what we bring into our lives. So the point isn't to get by with as few items as humanly possible. It's about finding what's enough for you. Emphasis on enough. Also another emphasis on you. In other words, only emphasize what's important. When people hear the word minimalism, they typically think of the white chair in an empty room, a single piece of art on the wall. The image that comes to mind is stark, barren, and empty. What was your very first impression of minimalism?
It had a bit of a culty vibe.
A slightly culty vibe.
A slightly culty vibe. Yeah, it kind of seemed a bit weird. Like, I didn't know how to digest it, so I just didn't.
For the record, minimalism is not a cult. It is definitely not a cult. It's not. Please place your right hand on nothing. By order of the local chapter 536 of the Fraternal Order of Minimalist, I now declare you a minimalist. Wait, is that a bracelet?
Oh, this is just a bracelet that my mom gave me.
You can leave. Get out. Next.
I think anything that you kind of slap a label on that's a little bit niche feels a little culty. Like, it feels a little bit like underground, unrecognized, unrealistic.
A little extreme.
Yeah, it does feel extreme. Like, it's definitely not normal.
While I personally think it's amazing that people live in crazy simple spaces, it can be intimidating if that's all you see. If your only picture of minimalism is skewed to see the most extreme examples, you're less likely to understand the benefits and simply write it off as a fringe lifestyle. Like Natalie, you might think, oh, I could never do that. And you don't have to. Out of all the people I know that are minimalists, most of them don't live in an empty apartment. They have things in their life that others might say, well, that's not very minimalist. Instead of consuming as a pastime, when you practice minimalism, you're careful about curating the things in your home, people in your life, and activities that fill your time.
But that doesn't mean that you have to use the label minimalism. I think a lot of people get tripped up on that word, and if they were to simply ignore it, they could find a lot of value with living a life with more intention.
How has your relationship with stuff changed since we started dating? Because I see that you're very intentional with what you do with your purchases and your decisions with how to spend your time, but you do not call yourself a minimalist.
Yeah, I definitely, I was going, I would say, on a shopping spree on a weekly basis when we met, if not twice a week. I would go out, not for anything particular, but knowing that I would buy stuff because I had a special event coming up, or not even a special event. I just had a lunch coming up, or I just had an outing coming up, and I would need a new outfit. I used to have a wardrobe full of things with labels and price tags still on them because I would never wear them. Or a wardrobe full of things that I would wear literally one time, and then it'll lose its luster. Whilst now I'm, really trying to be more intentional with wearing things several times. Am I buying something particularly for an event, or am I buying something because I really love it and I want to wear it several times? I've definitely become a lot more conscious on what I'm buying.
So would you say that you can practice minimalism without becoming a minimalist?
Call it whatever you want. Call it minimalism, call it essentialism, call it whatever. It's just me being a little bit more intentional and being probably a little bit more fiscally responsible.
If it makes you happy to sleep on the floor, to be ultra conservative with your silverware, or to keep your walls completely untouched, then do that. But if you prefer a couch, a rug, a fruit bowl, if it's something that makes you feel good and brightens your home, then keep it. If you have too few items and it starts to negatively impact your life, you might want to rethink how you're implementing minimalism. Less is more, until less becomes less.
Minimalism! It's not a cult! Yet!